Hello, it's November 2024, and this video is going to be expanding on two woo-woo topics. So once again, if you're not interested in this type of thing, then just skip this video. However, I've noticed how there has been interest in this particular type of topic, so I'm going to be answering some requests to expand on two different types of, again, as a descriptive, woo-woo events that I've experienced through my whole life. Now, this first one I'm going to be expanding on is in response to a video I did last spring with regards to a particular species that can project, and someone had asked in the comment section if I would discuss what happened the week after that event, which was the focus of that video. Now, normally when I discuss things on any topic, whether it be earthly, spiritual, or woo-woo, I like to present evidence, or whatever evidence I do have. However, expanding on what took place the week after, I don't have any evidence of, but again, some people have requested for me to explain what happened, so I will be doing that. And I'll also be expanding a bit on one other type of event that I've experienced throughout my whole life. So going back to this video about a species that can project, and I had shared in this one video the event that started about a week-long series of events. Again, can't prove any of this, so this is just basically my retelling the story. So in a nutshell, what had happened after the event with the woman that I was talking to, and this species projecting through her and everything else, I had some very unusual things that took place. Nothing really significant, but for whatever it's worth. One example would be, there was one time I was looking into a mirror in the bathroom, and it was like a half-wall mirror, so it was like from the waist up, but it was really a big mirror. And I had went into the bathroom at some point during the night to relieve myself. And as I was at the sink, I'm just looking in the mirror, and then I looked up again, and off to my left, there was a very clear image of what I had seen that had projected through that woman. And I remember looking at it, but it wasn't just a face, it was pretty much the whole body. Again, if you want to think of it as kind of I hate to use the word, a portal type of thing that was being projected into the mirror, but behind me, if that makes any sense. And I remember looking, and I looked away and I looked up and thinking, okay, I wasn't afraid. I was kind of startled at first, and we just kind of were looking at each other. It wasn't stationary, it was you know, as you're kind of standing, there's a little bit of movement and things like that. And then it just kind of turned around and kind of stepped away, and then it all just kind of faded out. And that's an example of the types of things that were occurring that week. And now that I'm thinking, there was another example where, again, the species can project into people, and it had projected into another person. This is the only time that this has ever happened. And I remember talking with the person, and I looked at them, and for a moment it seemed to have projected. So my whole sense of that week was, it was just letting me know it's still around, I guess. I don't know, however you want to describe it. Again, I wasn't disturbed by it. It was just okay, and guess wait, see what happens type of thing. So that's really the week, just basically it presenting itself. Again, nothing I can prove. When these things had happened, I wasn't expecting it, I wasn't prepared, I was just kind of like, oh, and that was pretty much it. But that whole week, it was about a week, and it wasn't all the time. It just, you know, for a few minutes here and there, and however long it lasted, and that was it. Now, I did do some research afterwards, and apparently, I think going back to ancient times, it says that when people have, or the species, or this individual of the species, or whatever, presents itself, usually bad things follow. And when I think about my life afterwards, a lot of bad things had followed. But is there a connection? I don't know. I'm just stating what I had uncovered through some research. I didn't research it because I was interested. I was just curious, like, you know, okay, other people have experienced this type of thing, whatever. So that's basically that story with the week after. Sorry if it's not exciting or whatever, but it is what it is. Now I'm going to go to a different type of experiences that I've had throughout my life, and it has to do with, dare I say, abductions. And dare I say again that I'm one of these crazy people who have experienced these things throughout my life. And these experiences, not so much now in my life, but it involved what I used to call as a child the nice ones and the not so nice ones. And these experiences are very real, tangible, etc. But I'm just going to focus on one particular one because I gave a bit of a teaser.
That warm, white, prickly light was the same warm, prickly light that you and I were. Remember when that light showed up above the house?
I started to see all this firecracker, like going, just fiber lines.
Well, what you and I seen was a strobe-looking light.
Yeah. And then there's something about losing time, but I think that
We lost time.
I don't know if it can be turned off that.
Of someone remembering missing time and everything else at the end of the video. So I'll just very quickly share that story for those who had shown interest in that. Now, this particular event took place with someone that I didn't really talk to often, although, oh, anyway, there's some dynamics there. So my point is that this evening that we had this conversation was kind of unique in our lives. And it was around 9:30 p.m. March 22nd. And we're sitting in the living room. It was like an open concept house, and there's like picture windows all around. And we were talking, and I know the time because I was thinking, well, it's getting kind of late, maybe I should be leaving or whatever. And as we were talking, we were just talking about nothing specific, I don't recall. I had noticed, so the front windows, the picture window was kind of divided with the wall, small little wall. And I noticed the strobe looking light they lived out in the country. It was about, I think, like a 800-foot driveway, and there was all gravel roads everywhere. And there's a forest across the dirt road at the end of the driveway. And I had noticed a strobe-looking light in the distance, and it would flash, disappear and flash, and it'd be a little bit closer each time it did that. And the person I was talking to said, well, what are you looking at? I said, look at that light. And they leaned over and they seen it too. And their response was, oh, that's just kids on skidoos. Well, not above the trees. So after, I don't know, maybe about a minute or so, we had got up and kind of crisscrossed to look out the window from where we were sitting. And then they had said, oh, that's just the transformer for the power lines. I said, well, the transformer doesn't move. And that same kind of strobe light moved from right to left. And then at some point, what had happened was, it was dark outside, and there's no lights out in the country. A big, from our perspective, the crescent-shaped light had like lit up the front part of the house. It would have been a circle around the house, but from our perspective, it was just like a crescent shape. And there was no fade. It was just like bright white light and then darkness. And the person that I was talking to was to my left, looking out that window. And they looked my direction, and behind me would have been where the front entrance was, and there was a skylight. And they yelled, "It's above the house." And I remember I turned to look, and I seen the light coming in. And then what had happened then, I had turned back to them and looked over my right shoulder, and this warm, white, prickly light, I was engulfed in it, and it, I guess, was taking me. And then the next thing, and their voice, they were yelling. I remember them yelling, but their voice was getting farther and farther away. And then the next thing that I remember, I can only speak for myself, and apparently the same for them, is we're looking out the front window at that arc of white light, and it just went out, just like you turned off a light switch. And I looked at them saying, what just happened? Like, what? And I was just trying to make sense of everything really quick. And I had stepped back, and I could see there was a fireplace dividing the living room and the kitchen. And so I looked out the back window, and I know there was a field way in the distance, and it lit up again. And I was going to run out after it. And the person I was with had said, there's a saying back home, because from a different country. When you see stuff like that, you leave it alone. I didn't run out after that. And that was the event itself. And then there was another person in the house, and they went to the other side of the house, to the room that they were in, and they were yelling at, not yelling, but you know, like, why didn't you come? I was yelling. And the person had no idea what was going on. They didn't even know what they were watching on the television. And as that turned out, they asked, well, what time is it? And it was about just after 12:30. So that means 3 hours of time lost. But it felt like, from my perspective, instant. And that's pretty much the event that I hinted at the end of the video, where you could hear discussion. Now I'm just gonna say, I ended up staying the next night to see if what would happen, and there was another crazy event. I don't know if it was related or not, but it was completely different. And if there's interest in that, I'll share that story. But I want to take the opportunity now to segue for a moment about that white, warm, prickly light. And that ties into one of my death experiences. The second time I had drowned, and I was under the water for, I don't know, 45 minutes or an hour or something. The people who were trying to search for me to rescue me were already given up when I had bobbed out of the water. And I remember I took a deep breath. But I remember at one point, the river was very deep. Some parts apparently go to like 1,000 meters. This is in Europe. And I remember going down, looking up, and seeing the light from the sky get smaller and smaller. And as I was going down, I felt the ice cold water up my feet, up my legs. And I had turned, looked over my right shoulder, and there was that warm, white, prickly light. And this took place, I would have been somewhere in the early 80s, if I recall correctly. So this was before this other event. And this warm, white, prickly light, there seems to be a theme. Now, I'm going to say this, depending on which group, nice ones, not so nice ones, are doing these things, one has the warm, white, prickly light, the other one doesn't. Just trying to, I don't know, explain it. This is not really this easy to talk about, because a lot of people think this type of thing is crazy talk, which is fine. I can only share my experiences and what I know. The event, obviously, when I was young and drowned for the second time, I can't prove it. People didn't walk around with cameras or anything else, and I was in the water, swimming, playing with other people, and didn't expect it to happen. And this event that I explained with this other person and the missing time and everything else, I did share that little piece of evidence with regards to that, what evidence I do have. So anyway, there's I have a whole lifetime of these types of things that happen, and sometimes I'm alone, sometimes with others, sometimes at night, sometimes in the day, sometimes I'm asleep, sometimes I'm awake, and sometimes I do have some evidence or residuals of the event afterwards. So anyway, that's that, and thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.
Listen to this and write it down if you can't remember it. You're never going to outgrow warfare. You simply must learn to fight. I hear people say, when is it going to get easier? When you die.